Intro, some megaprojects were designed to change the world. Others, however, became billion-dollar cautionary tales. Forgotten airports in the middle of nowhere, gigantic stadiums without fans, futuristic cities with no residents. Around the globe, governments and corporations have poured unimaginable resources into infrastructure that, for one reason or another, failed spectacularly. In this video, we explore not just failed construction, but the psychology behind such failures. How could so many people, so much money, and so much planning result in nothing? Stay tuned, because the last example is so absurd, it might make you question the entire logic of urban planning. And if you want to discover why some of these projects were doomed from day one, hit that subscribe button now. What are megaprojects and why do they fail so often? Megaprojects are large-scale, complex ventures that typically cost billions of dollars, take many years to develop, and affect millions of people. Think of high-speed rail systems, Olympic stadiums, artificial islands, or even entire cities. They promise economic transformation, technological breakthroughs, or national prestige, but more often than not, they end up as over-budget, underused, or entirely abandoned relics. According to Oxford professor Bent Flyvbjerg, one of the world's leading experts in megaproject management, a staggering 90% of megaprojects exceed their original budget, and nearly as many fail to deliver on time, or at all. Why? One word: optimism bias. Politicians and developers overestimate the benefits and underestimate the risks. Add in public pressure, corruption, shifting political climates, and technological complexity, and you have a recipe for disaster. But not every failure looks like a crumbling stadium or an empty terminal. Some megaprojects do get completed, only to remain functionally irrelevant. Either they're built in the wrong place at the wrong time, or for the wrong purpose. In this video, we'll travel across the globe, from empty capital cities to floating airports and submerged tunnels, to understand what happens when big dreams collapse under their own weight. The Ryugyong Hotel, North Korea's 105-story empty pyramid in the heart of Pyongyang, stands a towering monument to ambition and failure. The Ryugyong Hotel, rising 330 meters into the sky with a triangular pyramid-like structure, it was once meant to be the tallest hotel in the world. Construction began in 1987 at the height of North Korea's efforts to show the world it could compete on a global scale, even in tourism. But then, reality hit hard. With the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, foreign investment dried up. The hotel sat abandoned for over 16 years, windowless, unfinished, and without a single guest. Pyongyang's skyline was dominated by this eerie, hollow shell. Locals reportedly referred to it as the Phantom Hotel. Despite brief attempts to revive the project in the 2000s, even with help from an Egyptian telecom company, it remains unopened to this day. No restaurants, no guests, no bookings. So why was it built in the first place? North Korea was in a cold war of architecture with South Korea. In 1986, Seoul had completed the world's tallest hotel, the Westin Stamford. Kim Il-sung didn't want to be outdone, but ambition without funding is a dangerous recipe. And the Ryugyong remains the perfect example of a megaproject without a mission. Ciudad Real International Airport, Spain's empty sky gateway. Imagine building an international airport for hundreds of millions, only to discover that almost nobody wants to fly there. That's the story of Ciudad Real International Airport in central Spain. Designed to be a high-speed, high-capacity alternative to the busy Madrid Barajas Airport, this sleek and modern facility opened in 2009. Complete MIT 4,000-meter runway, futuristic terminal, and grand ambitions. But there was one problem: no one showed up. Built in a remote location with poor public transport links, the airport never attracted major airlines. At its peak, it handled fewer than 100,000 passengers per year, a fraction of its expected capacity. Just 3 years after opening, operations were suspended. The building was locked, staff were gone, and tumbleweeds replaced tourists on the tarmac. It cost over $1.1 billion, much of it funded through regional banks and speculative investment. When Spain's economic crisis hit, the dream collapsed. The airport was even listed for auction in 2014 for just $10,000, though no one initially bid. In 2016, a Chinese consortium expressed interest, but the sale was delayed for years. Today, it's used sporadically for storage, private aviation, and aircraft maintenance, but far from its original vision. Ciudad Real is a cautionary tale. Infrastructure without demand is like a plane with no passengers. It goes nowhere. Forest City, Malaysia, the empty smart metropolis, built on reclaimed land off the coast of Johor. Forest City was supposed to be a futuristic eco-metropolis. Green towers covered in plants, autonomous transport, and a utopian lifestyle marketed to wealthy Chinese investors. Backed by Country Garden, one of China's largest property developers, the $100 billion Megaproject was launched in 2016 with high hopes of housing 700,000 residents. But today, Forest City is eerily quiet. Empty streets, unfinished towers, closed shops, and hardly any residents. What went wrong? First, the target audience. Most units were sold to upper-middle-class Chinese buyers, many of whom saw it as an investment, not a home. That meant low actual occupancy. Then came politics. Malaysia's former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad called Forest City a foreign enclave and pushed back against foreign ownership. In 2020, COVID-19 sealed the deal. Construction stalled, borders closed, and buyers vanished. Critics argue that Forest City failed to integrate with local infrastructure or address Malaysia's actual housing needs. Its isolated island location and lack of jobs only worsened the problem. Although Country Garden claims the project is ongoing, the scale and pace have slowed dramatically. Forest City remains a surreal symbol of ambition, overreach, and the consequences of building cities without communities. New South China Mall, China. The world's biggest empty mall in the city of Dongguan, China, lies the New South China Mall, a retail complex so massive it could host over 2,300 shops, 7 zones styled after international cities, and even its own indoor roller coaster. Opened in 2005, it was supposed to be a retail paradise attracting millions. But instead, it became the most famous ghost mall in the world. The numbers were staggering, 659,000 meters of total space, making it the largest shopping mall globally by leasable area. But within a few years of opening, less than 10% of the retail units were occupied, entire sections remained unfinished, fountains dry and escalators silent. What happened? The developers targeted upper-class Chinese consumers, but built the mall in Dongguan, a city populated largely by factory workers with limited disposable income. Worse, poor transport connections and inconvenient access meant few even visited. The vision was there, but not the market. For over a decade, the mall became symbolic of China's real estate overdrive. Renovations were attempted in the 2010s, trying to rebrand it as a mixed-use complex. A theme park, cinema, and some new stores brought brief life, but the upper floors and most corridors remained deserted. Today, while parts of it are functional, the New South China Mall still stands as a monument to overambition, poor location planning, and the gap between vision and reality. Montreal Olympic Stadium, Canada. The most expensive stadium flop in history, it was supposed to be the jewel of the 1976 Summer Olympics. A futuristic architectural marvel with a retractable roof, a soaring 165-meter tower, and a design meant to symbolize Canada's innovation and grandeur. But instead, Montreal's Olympic Stadium became one of the most infamous white elephants in sporting history. Nicknamed the Big O, a nod to its shape in the Olympics, it soon earned a darker title, the Big O. Why? Because the stadium's cost exploded from an initial estimate of $134 million CAD to over $1.6 billion CAD by the time it was fully paid off in 2006, 3 decades later. Construction was a disaster. The retractable roof never worked properly. The tower wasn't completed until 1987. 11 years after the Games, corruption, strikes, and poor planning plagued every step of the process. To host the Olympics, the city was forced to take on enormous debt, and Montreal taxpayers were stuck footing the bill for decades. Even after the Olympics, the stadium struggled. The Montreal Expos baseball team left, the Montreal Alouettes football team relocated temporarily, and attempts to repurpose the stadium as a convention or concert venue fell flat. Leaks, concrete falling from the roof, and maintenance issues further cemented its reputation. Today, the stadium still stands, used only occasionally for public events. But it remains a cautionary tale, a monument not to national pride, but to cost overruns, overambition, and Olympic dreams turned into fiscal nightmares. Isolux-Corson Solar Road, Spain. High hopes, low efficiency. What happens when green ambition meets poor execution? In the case of the Isolux-Corson Solar Road in Spain, the result was a bold but flawed experiment that quickly faded into obscurity. Inspired by the global trend of renewable infrastructure, the Spanish construction company Isolux-Corson launched a pilot project to embed solar panels directly into roads. The goal? To generate electricity while vehicles passed over them, turning highways into power plants. The idea wasn't new. Similar concepts had been tested in France and the Netherlands, but Spain's climate seemed perfect. Plenty of sunshine and a desperate need for renewable energy solutions. The pilot road, located in Castilla-La Mancha, featured solar panels encased in protective glass, designed to endure vehicle pressure while producing energy. But the results were underwhelming. The panels suffered from inefficiency, quickly got dirty, and even minor shading from cars or dust dramatically reduced output. Maintenance proved expensive and real-world conditions were far harsher than anticipated. Worse, the electricity generated was negligible, far below projections. Critics slammed the project as a PR stunt, pointing out that rooftop solar systems are far more efficient and less costly. Combined with Isolux Corsan's financial struggles, the company eventually declared bankruptcy in 2017. The solar road became a symbol of technological optimism without practical grounding. In the end, the panels were removed and the site quietly returned to asphalt. What remains is a powerful lesson. Not every futuristic idea survives contact with reality, especially when engineering meets everyday wear and tear. Great man-made river. Libya, a desert dream. Lost in the sand. At first glance, the Great Man-Made River, GMR, was nothing short of revolutionary, a sprawling network of underground pipelines designed to bring fresh water from ancient aquifers deep beneath the Sahara to Libya's coastal cities. Launched in 1984 by Muammar Gaddafi, it was hailed as the eighth wonder of the world. With over 1,600 wells, some as deep as 500 meters and more than 4,000 kilometers of pipeline, the system promised to turn Libya's arid heartland into a green agricultural belt. The idea was rooted in necessity. Libya lacked rivers and reliable rainfall, and seawater desalination was too expensive. Instead, Gaddafi's regime turned to fossil water trapped beneath the Nubian sandstone aquifer system, a non-renewable resource buried for thousands of years. At its peak, the GMR delivered 6.5 million cubic meters of water per day to cities like Tripoli, Benghazi, and Sirte, but the project's sheer ambition masked deeper flaws. First, it relied on finite water reserves with no natural recharge. Critics warned from the beginning, once drained, the aquifer would be gone forever. Second, the political instability following Gaddafi's fall in 2011 plunged the project into neglect and decay. Maintenance collapsed. Key pumping stations were damaged in civil unrest. In 2020, a militant group even deliberately shut down water supplies as political leverage. The final blow? Climate, conflict, and lack of funding. Today, vast stretches of pipeline lie unused, and Libya faces growing water shortages once again. What was once a symbol of national pride now serves as a cautionary tale. Grand engineering can't replace long-term sustainability or political stability. Why do these megaprojects fail? When you examine the world's most infamous failed megaprojects, a common thread begins to emerge. One stitched together by ambition, ego, and neglect. These projects often begin with bold promises and powerful headlines, but somewhere along the way, reality catches up. Corruption is a recurring culprit. Funds that should fuel progress are diverted, inflating budgets and undermining trust. In some cases, contracts are awarded not based on merit, but on political favoritism or bribes, weakening the project's foundation from day one. Unrealistic planning is another key reason. Visions are drawn before feasibility studies are done. Engineers are pushed to break records, not build sustainably. What looks great in a render might collapse under environmental or logistical pressure. Then there's political change. Megaprojects often span decades, and when leadership changes, so do priorities. A new administration may cut funding or cancel the project altogether, leaving half-built skeletons behind. Environmental factors also play a role. Rising sea levels, earthquakes, or unexpected soil conditions can bring construction to a halt. Combine that with lack of demand, building where no one wants to live or travel, and you get a white elephant. Ultimately, many failed megaprojects fall victim to a dangerous mindset. Prestige over purpose. The goal isn't functionality, it's legacy. And when image trumps need, failure is just one misstep away. Will it always be this way? Not necessarily. While failed megaprojects capture headlines, the future holds a different blueprint. Around the globe, planners, architects, and governments are learning from past mistakes and slowly shifting the paradigm. One major takeaway: failure isn't always the end. In fact, some failed projects offer critical insights into what not to repeat. Cost overruns, poor community integration, and ignoring environmental consequences are now glaring red flags. This is the rise of smart failure, embracing mistakes as data, Today's mega projects are increasingly shaped by sustainability. Renewable energy sources, eco-friendly materials, and carbon-neutral construction are no longer idealistic. They're expected. Modular planning is another trend, breaking massive projects into smaller, scalable units that can evolve over time. Most importantly, citizen participation is on the rise. From digital surveys to live town halls, people are demanding a seat at the table. The era of top-down prestige projects may be fading, replaced by community-centered innovation. Sometimes the biggest dreams leave the deepest ruins. These mega projects remind us that size doesn't always mean success, and that billion-dollar failures can be even more revealing than triumphs. From Forest City's empty towers to solar roads that never worked, the cracks in these grand designs tell human stories of ambition, pride, misjudgment, and blind faith in scale. But buried in these ruins lies something valuable: insight. Insight that helps engineers build smarter, planners think longer, and communities ask louder. In the end, the most powerful monument isn't the tallest tower, but the lesson it leaves behind. Did you enjoy this deep dive into the most spectacular failures of modern architecture? Then subscribe, hit the bell, and don't forget, the most unbelievable projects are often the ones they don't finish. Stay curious, stay critical, and let's explore what happens when ambition meets reality.